Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all feeling safe and well. It is 2 p.m. and welcome to the webinar for the non-statutory consultation regarding the North Lincolnshire Green Energy Park. We're doing these webinars, this is the second one, because it's not possible to meet in person during the COVID-19 epidemic. My name is Paul Kelly, and my role is to facilitate and chair this webinar today. We have members of the project team on hand this afternoon, all joining from their homes as part of the social distancing requirements. Now, they might well be battling with the same technology and using the same technology that you are using today, so please bear with us if there's going to be any problems. Their role will be to explain our proposals, how and why we're consulting on them, and to answer any questions that you may have. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for all to see and hear on our website throughout the consultation, which started on May the 26th and which concludes on July the 14th, so that's next Tuesday. Many of you may already have seen a booklet from us that has a lot of detail about the proposals. You can also find out more on our website, which is probably where you would have registered for this session. If you would like to ask a question of the team, you can just do that at any time by using the question function button, which should be located on your screen. We will answer these in the question and answer session of this webinar. We hope to be able to answer most questions in this session, but some might require a more detailed answer that will take us a little bit longer to do. So if we actually have to do that, we will respond comprehensively. In this situation, the question will be answered with a written response when the webinar is loaded to the website. Now, some people might prefer to have the questions answered more personally, in which case, please feel free to call the project team on the numbers on our website or contact us by email. And a number of people have already done that. This webinar is scheduled to last up to 60 minutes, most of which has been allocated to answering your questions. But to kick us off, here is a short pre-recorded presentation made by the project team to introduce our proposals. Thank you very much. This presentation provides an overview of the proposals for the North Lincolnshire Green Energy Park. At the core of the scheme is an energy recovery facility to process up to 650,000 tonnes of non-recyclable residues every year, producing up to 380 megawatts of energy. It is being given as part of a webinar in order to help local people participate in the non-statutory consultation taking place between the 26th of May and the 14th of July 2020. Our aim is to provide a high-level introduction to the proposals, explain how you can find out more, if you would like to do so, and how to participate in the consultation. This is also an opportunity to ask questions as part of this webinar. We have received a number of questions from members of the public before today. You can also ask questions using the question and answer box on your screen. We will address these after the presentation. The North Lincolnshire Green Energy Park is being prepared by Solar 21. The Chief Executive Officer of Solar 21, Michael Bradley, will introduce himself and the project very shortly. Solar 21 is supported on the project by a team with a broad range of expertise. The team includes Northern Planners, which is advising on planning policy, ERM, which is carrying out environmental impact assessments, legal advisors Womble Bond Dickinson, engineers Burrell Happold, Fichtner Consulting Engineers, LDA Design, Master Planners, and Newgate Communications, which is carrying out the public consultation. Members of the team will introduce themselves and their areas of expertise as part of this presentation. Let us have a look at the location of the proposed site so it can be put into geographical context. You can see that the site of the proposed North Lincolnshire Green Energy Park is at the Flixborough Industrial Estate on the east bank of the River Trent, approximately 3 miles northwest of Scunthorpe. The land in pale blue is the core focus of this particular consultation. It is where the energy recovery facility is proposed to be located. Some of the land shaded grey may be required to deliver associated infrastructure, such as a new road and landscaping. It offers the potential for further growth and additional development in the future if the energy recovery facility is approved.
Hello everyone, I'm Michael Bradley, Chief Executive Officer of Solar 21. I'd like to thank you for joining us today and hope you're all keeping safe and well. Solar 21 was founded by my brother Andrew and I in 2010, driven out of our passion for renewable energy and proactively seeking to invest to combat climate change. Over the last 10 years, we've developed generating facilities using solar PV, biomass, biogas and energy from waste. More locally, we've built a 23 megawatt biomass plant which is diverting waste wood that may otherwise go to landfill. This was selected as Best Renewables Project at the Humber Renewable Energy Awards in 2017. We've also just commissioned a 2 megawatt biogas plant producing biomethane from potato and vegetable waste. When designing the North Lincolnshire Green Energy Park project, we've adhered as closely as possible to the principles of the circular economy. That is, to ensure that we utilise as much of the energy we produce as possible, as well as the byproducts of the process. The driving force for the scheme is an energy recovery facility to process up to 650,000 tonnes of non-recyclable waste every year, producing up to 380 megawatts of energy. The technology will be at the forefront of the best practices in the UK. This will be achieved by the efficient use of the byproducts which have been planned from the inception of the project rather than as an afterthought. This will include installing connections so that the heat we produce can be used in the district networks in the local area, capturing and using the carbon dioxide, and treating ash on site and using it to produce products used in the construction industry. Our ambition is to help meet local and national needs by diverting black bag waste away from landfill and by producing low carbon sources of energy. If possible, projects such as the proposed new hospital in Scunthorpe and other community schemes such as the hydrogen bus pilot are elements we are very keen to support. I would like to thank you most sincerely today for taking the time to contribute to this consultation, and I'll now pass you over to Colin, who will give you more details of the benefits of the project.
Thanks, Mike. My name is Colin Hammond and I'm Head of Strategic Business Development at Solar 21 and the project lead for the North Lincolnshire Green Energy Park. This proposal offers local, regional and national benefits for waste management, employment and for the environment, with low carbon energy for domestic and commercial use and for green fuel for transport. This region still sends the majority of non-recyclable residues to landfill. It also exports a significant amount, with nearly 1 million tonnes passing through the Humber ports. By diverting 650,000 tonnes of RDF from landfill, this facility will deliver significant environmental benefits in support of the UK's waste strategy. Employment opportunities include up to 300 full-time local jobs and 100 apprenticeships in the core scheme, with up to 600 jobs in construction over 3 years. In the future, around 1,000 jobs could be created through adjacent business developments. The energy produced has the potential to meet the needs of up to 193,000 homes. That's 5 times the size of Scunthorpe. By facilitating a link to the proposed Lincolnshire Lakes development of 6,000 homes, where over 60% of the total energy demand will be for heating, it may be possible to achieve a significant reduction in household running costs and in the carbon footprint. Local benefits from the proposed road improvement scheme, the decarbonisation of local transport through electric vehicle charging, and the production of hydrogen for use in buses, trains and shipping will all contribute towards the national carbon neutral target by 2050. Demand for energy varies throughout the day and in each season. This facility will store heat, power and gas when there is low demand in order to maintain a constant supply at peak demand. RDF, or refuse-derived fuel, which is mainly made up of non-recyclable plastic, is combusted to create steam. That steam drives a steam turbine to generate the electricity. The ash produced as part of the process will be heat treated within the facility to neutralise potentially harmful byproducts, and the aggregate-like product produced will be used on site to manufacture concrete blocks. This ensures that emissions are neutralised prior to release via the stack. This facility will clean, capture and utilise up to 250,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide every year. Steam and excess heat produced by the facility will be used in the district heat network and for community projects. Any excess power not immediately required by the national grid or in the local networks will be used to convert coolant water into hydrogen, which is stored for when the energy is needed at peak demand. I will now hand over to members of the project team who will talk about our transport proposals, the Environmental Impact Assessment, or EIAs, and the planning process.
Thank you, Colin. My name is Amy Naylor and I'm a Chartered Town Planner, currently working for a local consultancy based in Yorkshire called Northern Planners. We have been supporting Solar 21 for a number of years on their energy schemes throughout East Riding and North Lincolnshire. We will aim to maximise rail connections by bringing the private railway line between the Flixborough Industrial Estate and Scunthorpe Steelworks back into use. We also propose to extend the wharf at Flixborough Port to increase the number of operational berths on the River Trent, which is already capable of handling 600,000 tonnes of goods each year. Additionally, we are putting forward plans to improve the local road network by building an access road directly linking the Flixborough Industrial Estate and the A1077 to relieve pressure on the current bottleneck junction near Neep House. The scheme also aims to decarbonise local transport by including an electric vehicle charging station and hydrogen refuelling station in the proposals. This could support a hydrogen bus pilot scheme for Scunthorpe.
Thank you, Amy. My name's Andy Gregory and I'm an environmental consultant from ERM, and we are responsible for developing the Environmental Impact Assessment, or EIA, for the project. ERM is a leading global provider of environmental and sustainability services. We have been operating for almost 50 years and have offices across the UK as well as internationally. Through the production of the EIA, ERM will work with Solar 21 and their engineering partners to help develop a project that identifies all environmental receptors and takes any potential impacts into account in the design of the scheme. The EIA will take an iterative approach to design and assessment, with mitigation and environmental protection being built into the scheme where possible. Where mitigation for potential effects cannot be embedded within the design, additional mitigation will be identified during the EIA process to minimise the risks of impacts to the environment. The EIA will provide detailed considerations of the potential impacts, including air quality and emissions to the air, flooding, given the proximity to the River Trent and Humber estuary, and ecology, especially as the estuary is designated as the SSI, SAC and Ramsar site. It will follow a formal process set out in legislation, including the topics to be addressed and the way it is to be reported.
Thanks, Andy. My name is Kate Ashworth and I am an associate at Womble Bond Dickinson, specialising in planning and infrastructure law. I have a particular focus in the energy and waste sectors, and our team has substantial experience promoting nationally significant infrastructure projects and giving legal advice on the development consent order regime. The Energy Recovery Facility has a generating capacity of more than 50 megawatts, which means this scheme is classed as a nationally significant infrastructure project. This means the application for consent to build the project must be made to the Secretary of State rather than the local planning authority. The process for this type of consent is slightly different to the town and country planning regime in that the developer is required to consult with the public and key stakeholders before submitting an application, which is what is happening now. There will also be a further, more detailed round of consultation carried out before the application is submitted next year. I will now hand back to Colin to talk about the delivery timescales for the project.
Thank you, Kate. This is Colin again from Solar 21. Timeline for the development consent order planning process is fixed and fairly prescriptive. We are at the start of the process in summer 2020 and embarking on the first of 2 rounds of consultation. The second round of consultation would take place later this year and possibly extend into the start of 2021. The DCO application will then be submitted to the Planning Inspectorate in the summer of 2021 for examination, which will involve what is in effect a third round of consultation, when all of the statutory bodies can question our team on the finer details of the application and make further representations to the Planning Inspectorate. By the end of 2022, we expect to have the Planning Inspectorate's decision on the application, and if it is approved, we would expect to commence construction with immediate effect. We would hope to start operating the facility by 2025. Paul Kelly will now talk through the opportunities for providing your views on the project.
This is Paul Kelly from Newgate Communications. This stage of the consultation process is voluntary, and we are carrying out now because we want to understand local people's views at an early stage. The COVID-19 pandemic means we are having to carry out this consultation in a different way to what was possible before, because we cannot have any physical face-to-face contact. But there are still lots of ways to find out more and provide your feedback, including reading the consultation booklet, going to our website, and speaking to us by phone. You can respond to the consultation online, by free post, or by email using the consultation questionnaire, but please do so before the 14th of July. After this stage of the consultation is complete, we will consider all the responses and update our proposals, and then hold a further statutory consultation before working up the final scheme. The presentation is now complete, so it is time for the team to answer your questions. We will address the questions we have received before and during the presentation, and you can continue to ask questions using the question and answer box on your screen. Thank you for your time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to answer any questions that you may have. We're going to try and take these on a first come, first served basis, and you will be able to see that my colleagues from the project are appearing on the screen for you there. If we have two questions that are essentially the same, we will combine them into one to try and avoid some confusion and repetition. So the first question that I have, and we have quite a number today, is who is providing the land and funding the construction of the plant? Colin, I guess this is one for you, and then perhaps Andrew Bradley might want to comment on that.
Yeah, I'll take it first and Andrew can chip in at the end. So it's proposed that the plant will be constructed on land currently owned by RMS Ports and the land that they lease. And North Links Green Energy Park has the option to purchase that land, including the 60-kilometre private railway line going down to the Dragonby sidings. North Links Green Energy Park will be funding the construction from ongoing renewable energy funds raised by Solar 21.
Okay, Andrew, is there anything you want to add to that?
Take myself off mute. No, I think that's a fairly comprehensive answer. Thank you, Colin.
Okay, the second question I have is who will be responsible for the cost of running the plant and how much of the predicted energy produced by it will be self-consumed? Colin, again, another one for you, I think.
Yes, thanks, Paul. Difficult question to answer in that the energy produced from the plant is the sum of the energy value of all the RDF that you put into the plant. So typically a plant such as this would utilize probably up to 10% under parasitic load. We might use slightly more in our case in that we are treating the ash, so superheating the treatment of the ash. So the consumption internally might be slightly higher, but it removes any risk of ash going into landfill.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the infrastructure already in place to carry the forecasted 380 megawatts of energy? Colin, you're going to be busy, I think, on this call.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So again, as I said on the answer to the first question, the second question, the 380 megawatts is the sum of the energy value of the RDF that goes into it. When you understand that it could be a range of 7 megajoules up to 23 megajoules on kilo of waste that goes in, you can see there's a massive range. So today there's no district heat network, so the output of this will be principally heat, but we do have a 63 megawatt grid connection to export electricity that we've had in place for over 3 years now, and we are in discussions with Northern Power Grid as to how we could increase that to help balance their system with the energy storage and everything else. So the electrical infrastructure clearly is there. The heat infrastructure we will build as a new development because they don't exist very commonly anywhere in the UK.
Thanks very much, Colin. Have the company, this is the fourth question, have the company tasked with building this plant ever managed a project of this size before? The largest I could find on the internet was 20 megawatts, and they said that's quite a difference. Who would like to take that? Colin, Andrew? Colin.
I'll take that one. Yeah, and anybody else can chip in. They don't want this to be a one-man show, so the rest of the team have contributed, and this actually is the answer to the question, in that yes, we lead the team, but we've built a team from specialists. You've mentioned Fitchner consulting engineers as our own engineers, who themselves have had projects much bigger than this, along with ERM, who've done the environmental on much bigger projects, the Bura Happold, who have done massive infrastructure projects, and LDA Design, who've done the master planning for large scale projects. And as Kate told you in her intro, that Womble Bond Dickinson are well known in managing the legal side of these large infrastructure projects. So it's the sum of the whole team, and I'm very pleased to have a very knowledgeable team to support me.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. Next one is around safety, which is clearly a very important issue. So what safety protocols are going to be in place around the generation and storage of hydrogen? Flixborough, as we know, already has suffered one devastating disaster from a so-called safe site. As I say, Colin, you're quite busy on this, so I'm afraid it's going to have to go back to you again, this issue of safety.
Yeah, hydrogen has the reputation of being a high-risk product, and obviously there's always risk when you have a fuel. But actually, hydrogen has a number of properties that makes it easier to handle, which, for example, it's non-toxic, and actually because it is lighter than air, it dissipates rapidly. But having said that, ventilation and leak detection is essential for hydrogen, so that will be key. And one of the specialist areas is flame detection for hydrogen. So all in all, these systems are well known. There's already, I think there's 16 now hydrogen refueling stations deployed throughout the UK, with probably 5 times that amount planned. And these are going on to petrol forecourts. So obviously a high risk area, probably higher risk than the site that we are on. And as more of these hydrogen elements, and you know, a lot of the government's strategy is around green hydrogen, as long as more of these are deployed, then the greater the safety record will be established and give members of the public more confidence that there's very low risk.
Okay, thanks, Colin. The next question is, can you confirm if it is a power station or an incinerator? Stage 4 of the diagram that we have states that the combustion, so it must be an incinerator which releases gases through. Colin, again, I'm coming back to you, I'm afraid.
Okay, yeah. The base definition of an incinerator is a facility that has what they call an R1 factor. So how efficiently do you use the energy in the waste that's been provided? So not just the efficiency of the technology, but how efficiently do you deploy the energy that is in the waste material. And they say that the R1 factor is, if it's below 0.65, then it's an incinerator. At the calculations we've got now, where we're probably at 0.85, this is what they term an energy recovery facility. So yes, it will produce power. Yes, it will produce a lot of heat, but we plan to deploy the heat where we can, because it's a more efficient deployment of that energy, and it will obviously displace a much greater level of fossil fuels, particularly if we can replace fossil fuels used for heating and general domestic and commercial use.
So I'll just come off mute. Thanks, Colin, for that. The next question asks, are you part of the emissions trading scheme? Who would like to take that? Colin, Andrew?
Okay, I'll take it for now. So no, we're not. And obviously, until such time as the site was consented, we would have nothing to trade or nothing to hedge against. So there's a lot of debate about the emissions trading system, particularly if we exit the European Union, as we're obviously planning to do. So it's a bit of an unknown quantity at the minute, but certainly the answer to it is no.
Okay, thanks very much, Colin. The next question, and I think we might be able to give you a short break shortly, is how have you arrived at 85% efficiency? Can you give a breakdown of how you got to that point, please?
I'm going to go to Andy. Are you off mute, Andy?
I'm trying. There we are. Sorry about that. It's quite a complex question and quite a complex response. So I think that in this case, the best thing to do is probably to respond in writing afterwards, rather than go into too much detail now. If that's okay, Paul.
Yeah, so what we're going to do then with that is to put that question in written form, and we will put that up post it up on the website, Andy. That's your understanding, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. I think the next question is probably for you too, which is, can you define the power station straight incinerator as inert when de novo synthesis take place? I think there's different ways of pronouncing that, and you're the expert at it.
Sure. I guess probably a bit of a two-part answer to this. First, I don't think we've ever said that the power station itself is inert. What we've stated is that the final product that comes out of the ash treatment process is effectively inert, so that the material that will then be used in block making, it is deemed to be inert. So to go back to the de novo synthesis question, this is effectively a process that can result in the formation of dioxins and fluorans, where essentially if we have the right chemical gases at the right temperatures, we can end up with a process that results in the formation of dioxins and fluorans, which the person that's asked the question probably knows are VOCs, volatile organic compounds that can be particularly hazardous to health. The answer to the question is this is something that is well understood, and in modern energy from waste or energy recovery facilities, this is something that is a lot of detail and a lot of consideration is given in the design to effectively make sure that those temperature ranges are never reached, so that the gases that go through the process are cooled very rapidly to prevent that process from occurring, and as a result of that, actually we end up in a process where we have a net destruction of these dangerous compounds. So I think that the waste that comes out contains fewer dioxins and fluorans than
than were in the waste when it went in.
Okay, Andy, thanks very much indeed for that. Next
If I could
question.
just add to that, Paul, sorry, before you move on.
Sure.
As most people be aware, in order, if this plant is successfully consented, in addition to its planning permission, it will also need to have a permit to operate from the Environment Agency, and all of these types of emissions are strictly monitored by the moment on a minute basis to comply with the permit, and the permit won't be granted unless the plant is safe for use.
Okay, that's a useful addition, Andy. Thank you. The next question then is one I think for you, Amy, if that's okay, which is when will the scoping report commence and be concluded, ready for the public to access it or indeed view it?
Thanks, Paul. We're hoping that the scoping report will be complete around September time, and that will be submitted to PINS for their opinion. Now, PINS have 42 days to respond to that scoping report, and I think it's also worth adding that the scoping report is made publicly available on the project PINS website, and I believe that we'll be contacting people on the project communication list to notify them that that is available, so you will be able to have a read through of that.
Amy, can I just ask you, just to cut in a bit there, could you just explain perhaps a little bit for people who don't know, who PINS are, and what a scoping report actually is, please?
Yeah. So we talk about EIA, which is Environmental Impact Assessment. And the scoping report collects all the baseline data, it brings it all together, all the baseline data that we've collected to date for the scheme. And it's a request to PINS, who are the planning inspectorate. So they are the body that will be receiving the DCO consent application, although they won't be ultimately making the decision. They will receive the scoping report, and the scoping report will be issued to all statutory bodies. Now that's prescribed in legislation as to who they consult the scoping report on, but it's all the key bodies who will have an opinion on the different environmental areas that are covered within the scoping report, and they will provide feedback on what they consider the scope should be of the environmental impact assessment. So there'll be very clear feedback there from those bodies on what we should cover in our scoping report.
Thanks, Amy. That's very helpful. Thank you. Okay, the next question is, what exactly will you be burning and where will it come from? And also, how will it be regulated? Colin, I wonder if that's one for you.
Yeah, I'm happy to take one. So it's refuse-derived fuel. Probably the easiest description of refuse-derived fuel is any waste product that can't be recycled. Principally nowadays, because of the removal of biogenic material and recyclable material, it's principally plastics, waste plastics that can't be recycled or it's not commercially viable to recycle. So that's the principal waste stream that comes through RDF. And because the government is banning the landfill of biogenic material from 2023, a lot of this now is being removed. And so predominantly, as I say, non-recyclable plastic. One of the reasons we selected this site was the East Midlands is still predominantly a landfiller of waste. Of the 9-odd million tonnes that goes to the landfill, the East Midlands has the largest proportion by region that goes to landfill, rather than either going for export or going into an energy recovery facility. So this is what, we've made it quite clear, that is what we're not taking in municipal waste, we're taking RDF in, and so that comes shrink wrapped in bales normally, and so that's the type of waste material we're using.
Okay, thanks, Colin. Next question is, how are you going to capture 250,000 tonnes of CO2 in a year when it appears to be a combustion incinerator, because combustion process creates CO2? Is there anybody who would like to take that? Otherwise, I shall go to Colin.
Nobody's volunteering. That's okay. No, so this is relatively new, so it's not new as a technology. Carbon dioxide capture from exhaust gases is quite a well-proven thing through coal-fired power stations, through a number of different industry applications. So rather than, as the government would require us to be carbon capture ready in this facility, we've just decided to take the bull by the horns and go for carbon capture utilization, so carbon capture, storage and utilization. So the idea is you intercept so the questioner was quite correct in, yes, carbon dioxide is an output from combustion. So we capture the gas, we clean the gas. It actually gives us a chance to capture a lot of the particulate and anything else that would otherwise go up in the exhaust flue gases. And we recycle those through the heat treatment, but we capture and clean the CO2, store it, and then it's used for a number of industrial and potentially agricultural, horticultural applications. Surprisingly, although carbon dioxide is always seen as a baddie, there is actually quite a shortage of carbon dioxide per se. And many people remember the football season last year where the carbon dioxide production was cut and caused issues on beer and fizzy drinks. So there are a lot of applications for the use of carbon dioxide. So we're going to invest heavily in the cleaning and capture of the carbon dioxide that comes out of the flue gas.
Okay, I've got quite a few more questions, so I'm going to press on with them. What has been the impact on local wildlife in an area where these facilities have been built? I wonder, Amy, Andy Gregory, whether that's a question for you. Can I start with Amy, please?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I think the impact on wildlife is very much assessed on a site-by-site basis, and I think it depends on a few factors, which includes the sensitivity of the receiving environment, where the plant will be sited, and also the scale of the development. In terms of this project, what we are doing at the moment, and we have been doing for a while, is collecting baseline ecological data. So we've been undertaking habitat surveys, species surveys, and this will all feed into the scoping report, which I mentioned earlier. The project will be subject to environmental impact assessment, formal environmental impact assessment, and we will ensure that adequate mitigation is put in place, and that will be assessed by PINS, and ultimately the decision will be the Secretary of State. We will also include any opportunities for enhancement, ecological and wildlife enhancement, as well as part of the scheme. So if you refer back to the brochure material, you'll be able to see in there where we've greyed out land where we would hope to make enhancements and also undertake ecological mitigation where it's required. We will also obviously need species licenses, etc., to undertake this development. So there's a very high bar in terms of impact on wildlife for this project.
Okay, thanks. Amy, is there anything you want to add to that, Andy?
Well, no, I probably can. Thanks so much, Amy. I guess the only thing I was going to add is that, as Amy says, we're going to be undertaking a rigorous EIA for the project, and what I guess part of my role in that is to work with Solar 21 and their engineers in an iterative way to help mould the outcome of the scheme, so that we can try and build in as much mitigation as we can. So if we identify that there's the potential for an effect, then we would seek to build in mitigation to make sure that doesn't come to fruition. So we're following an iterative process, which will hopefully be robust to protect the environment as much as we can.
Okay, thanks very much, Andy. The next question is, we have high pollution levels in Scunthorpe already. Why build this on agricultural land rather than brownfield sites in the area? Colin, maybe I could come to you on that, please.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, we're obviously aware of, and part of the environmental impact assessment you've heard everybody talk about at great length has to take in the residual or the background environmental state, and Scunthorpe, obviously with its industrial base, has high levels of particulates and things in the environment. The Clean Air Act actually drives you to try and make the environment better when you finished, rather than adding to it. And that's certainly the approach that we're taking, as hopefully everybody can see, in the extra investment we're willing to make to try and improve that. And certainly one of the things, by reducing the landfill, which is actually also being undertaken in the local area, all the locals know where the landfill sites are. We are actually improving. There is a net improvement by putting the waste through this process rather than landfilling it. So the point I would like to make on this, though, that literally the development, the ERF itself will be on brownfield site, so it's on the RMS port site and the brownfield land surrounding that. It won't go on agricultural land. The reason we put the sort of greyed out area is when they do the hydrology modelling, they don't know where additional water, and this is another question that's coming up later, will need to go in the event of a flood. And so we just have to cast our net fairly wide when we're doing that work, so that we can give a very a clear understanding of how we're going to mitigate any risk of flood. And so the site itself will be on brownfield, not on agricultural land.
Thanks, Colin. I mean, the next question we have, as you allude to, I think relates to that, which is there is talk of climate change and a high chance of increased flooding. Why build on the floodplain, presuming the proposed site will be built on the floodplain? Surely this pushes the floodwater towards local housing. Why? I wonder, Andy Gregory, whether you could pick that one up for us, please.
Sure. Thanks, Colin, for stealing my thunder. The location of the plant or the permission to build plants like this is dictated by national planning policy, and in order to be given permission to build the plant, the project team will have to demonstrate that the project can pass what's known as the exception test, which basically dictates that the scheme can operate safely in the event of a flood, whilst also not increasing the risk of flooding elsewhere. So at the minute, the person that's asked the question is absolutely right. The scheme is located in flood zone 3. It's also located behind the existing flood defences, so it's in an area that's known as benefiting from existing flood defences. So what we're going to have to do as part of our flood risk assessment is undertake a modelling exercise that essentially looks at what the residual risk of flooding would be in the event of a breach in those defences, or a flood that was so high that it overtopped those defences. And then we will look at where water would go in that case now, and then where the water would go with the scheme in place. And effectively have to design the scheme so that that any displaced water can go somewhere that is safe. So we would designate an area that the water would be displaced to, and also whilst also keeping the plant and the surrounding area safe from flooding as well. So essentially, yes, it is in an area that is at risk of flooding, but it would be designed to be able to be safe, both for its operational purposes and make sure that it doesn't increase the risk of flooding elsewhere.
And thanks very much. Now, the next question is coming to you, Colin. We've answered something broadly similar before, but I think everybody's mindful of the NIPRO issue that happened in this area. So the question is, how safe is this facility, bearing in mind that the NIPRO site was supposed to be safe?
Yes, thank you, Paul. Yeah, as I said before, we are cognizant and very sensitive to the history of the site, and you know, the people are still living that remember the thing well. I do too. So the safety of energy recovery facilities is quite high. I mean, there's been no explosions or fatalities in the UK. And certainly in the last 10 years, I haven't gone back any further than that. The waste industry has a bad reputation for safety, but that's in the processing side, the handling of the waste from collection through to mechanical treatment. So the sort of track record of these facilities is very, very good. It doesn't get away from the fact that we are controlled by the EA. The EA is now linked on a sort of 24-hour, minute-by-minute basis. So should we have any issues, all of the shutdown areas are much more clearly defined now. And obviously, with the detail that we've gone into for the site, all we can say is we've tried to address all of those points. We sort of just refer back to the track record of plants of this type for the last 10 years.
And just to add to that, thank you, Colin. Just for people that don't know that might be tuned in, there's 54 energy from waste, energy recovery type facilities currently in the UK, with another 11 in construction. And it's likely, given the volume of unrecyclable waste that's being produced and the fact that from 2050 landfill will be banned, that we'll probably need perhaps another 50 to cope with that volume over the coming years. So just to put that into a little bit more context.
Thanks, Andrew. Colin, but on that particular point, when we say the EA, we mean the Environment Agency in this context, don't we?
Yes, sorry. So we keep using the acronym, sorry. Yeah, Environmental Agency govern the emissions.
So they act as the regulator on this project?
Correct, and I missed that from that previous question. EA govern waste treatment, and they also govern the energy recovery facilities.
Okay, thanks, Colin. Apologies. The next question asks, what has been the immediate impact on house prices in an area where similar facilities have been built? Colin, I'm going to refer this one to you, if I may, please.
Yeah, we had this question before. Thanks, Paul. I think we've put it on the website. I'll just have to check with Josh and Douglas that it is. Cranfield University undertook a major study of 7 sites of house prices before the deployment of energy recovery and afterwards. And basically they found there was no statistical significance in house price values before or after that. And in fact, some of the cases, the house prices increased. And one of the things that we've looked at is the impact of demand on housing, of creating this number of jobs in an area where housing isn't plentiful. So hopefully the answer to that is the impact is not recognised or hasn't been done, and that's not our figures, of course. We just refer back to the experts on that.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question comes from how far away from a similar facility do the proposed owners of this scheme live? So is there any comment from anyone on that, please?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Paul. I'm not sure where everybody else actually lives, but they can answer if relevant. I actually live within about 3 miles of a pretty colossal coal power station. So the traditional looking one with the great big grey chimneys, multiple, I think there's 6 of them, and a fairly high stack. In Dublin, near where my brother lives, Cavant have just recently built a 60 megawatt plant similar to what we're proposing, and that's on the port side in Dublin City, which has a population of 1.5 million people, and our brother's within a few miles of that. So that's our personal experience. So not sure if anybody else has got anything to add to that.
Okay. I'm going to, Colin, do you want to say anything to it? I'm going to...
No, I mean, I'm within 4 miles of a energy recovery facility, and much closer to, I don't know the polite way to talk, these 2 miles from a chicken muck burning facility.
Okay, I think that's probably going to do where we are. Thank you very much. The next question is that Gunnis is one of the closer villages. People who I know who live then in the village have not been told about this and why. That's a question for me to take. The answer to that is that we believe that Gunnis lies are about just outside of our consultation, immediate consultation zone, where everybody was posted a copy of the details. That was a 3-kilometre range that we took. And that was really agreed and in consultation with the local authorities. That said, there was, we hope there was plenty of opportunities to find out about this consultation, but it is a non-stat consultation. We're here to learn. That's part of the process of it. And indeed, if people in Gunnis have not received that and would like to have information on this subject, then we're very, very happy to either send them some details now on this non-statutory consultation, and we'll certainly bear that in mind when we come to design the consultation zone for the statutory consultation, which will probably run in the winter of this year or into 21.
Yeah, and just to add, Paul, I think it's correct to say that as part of your process at New Year Communications, you also ran a couple of hard copy adverts in the local papers, so which are distributed, much more widely than the consultation area that we have selected.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I think what it comes down to, Andrew, sometimes if people don't necessarily have material through the post, and obviously some people don't have or have received through the post, but perhaps a little like me have not opened it or filed it because they didn't know where it's from. I think one of the things that we learned from all of this is that as the brand name, if you like, of this project begins to get wider recognition in the local community, people will be more open to receiving this information if they haven't had it. And if people have not had this information and would like it, we're very, very happy to get that. So please encourage people to go onto our website to request it, and we will send that through for you.
Yeah, and just to confirm to those that have tuned in that there'll be another opportunity at the formal consultation phase for people to give further opinions.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, the next question is, what have been the main complaints what have been the main complaints, e.g. smell, increased traffic, from other similar facilities from the local population? Colin, would you like to answer that? And perhaps I'm going to go over to Andy Gregory too for that.
Okay, so the sort of background to this is smell is normally linked to the sort of raw mechanical or untreated municipal waste. So smell where you've got individual dust carts coming to tip waste straight from collection certainly have increased traffic, because average weight on a dust cart is probably about 7 tons as opposed to 20-25 tons on a big trailer or big lorry, and so the smell is always associated with the biogenic waste that's in it. What we are going to use here is the RDF, as I say, so the biogenics taken out, it is not the same. So smell where it's municipal waste, increased traffic where there's lots of smaller vehicles going, but when you start talking about 3,000, 5,000 tons on a boat or the similar on a train, the traffic won't be the issue here. And so certainly the reason for the road in our case is to release issues that are already constrained from the industrial estate rather than our section. So certainly smell, noise, light pollution are often quoted, but often not sustained. Noise, again, is governed by the EA. So there's a lot of situations where there is a concern, but the reality isn't delivered. So all of the points the Jackie has made on those questions is similar facilities, but not similar to this one in that a lot of them take whole municipal waste rather than RDF.
Yeah, and just to add to that, if I may, Colin, Paul, the question earlier, was why was this site in particular chosen? So it was actually chosen because of its location on the river with onward access to the sea, and the existence of the railway line, which we intend to put back into use if the application is successful. So our aspiration is actually to bring as much waste as possible, either by rail or by sea, as opposed to road. So as Colin says, the new road is not to facilitate increased movement for us, albeit that there may be some, but in fact to relieve problems that already exist in that part of the world.
Thanks very much indeed, Andrew. That's helpful. Okay, now the next question I think is broadly similar, which is but it's very specific to the individual. So what will be the levels of noise and light pollution as I live in the closest housing area on the A road in Skippingdale? Andy Gregory, I wonder if you could pick that up, or if not, please.
Sure. Well, I can make a start. At the minute, as we say, we're at the very beginning of the process, or of the journey, really. So, whilst we have a conceptual idea of what the plant will be, we don't know the specifics of the pieces of kit and what will go in and how that, what the specific noise outputs from those units will be. So what we're going to do as part of our REIA is undertake a full noise impact assessment, and we will look at the closest sensitive receptors to noise, and we'll model the likely outputs, and then if we find that there could be potential to be an increase in noise that would be significantly felt or heard at a receptor, then we would build mitigation into the design to make sure that doesn't.
So when we refer to a receptor, Andy, we mean somebody who lives locally in the area.
Yeah, but it's not always human receptors. Some ecological species are sensitive to noise. So the impact assessment will consider all receptors, not just people.
Okay, I'm very conscious for those people who've tuned into this expecting it to last an hour, we've probably got enough questions, I think, to go on for about another 20 minutes, which given the seriousness of the debate here, I intend to do, if that's okay with everybody. What are the ash emissions during startup and shutdown? As I've heard, this is when it's at its highest. Again, Andy Gregory, I wonder if that, or Colin, maybe that's one for you.
I'll take that. So we certainly ash emissions, if you're starting on waste, would be an issue. Normally startup, we would probably choose to do it on hydrogen to get the temperature, and because you've got a two-stage system, you wouldn't expect to have any ash emissions through that time, but simply because you're capturing the carbon and recycling any particulates, they won't be emitted from the stack.
Okay, Colin, thanks very much indeed. Will the operation of the plant be constantly 24 hours a day and 365 days a year? Colin, I'm going to refer that one again to you, if I may.
Certainly, we would say 24 hours a day. You never get a plant of this type because of planned maintenance being 365 days a year. To give you a precise, our target is to get to 8,060 hours in a year. But the quayside will remain operational throughout operations, though there's already restrictions on operations for the port. The other thing is we will, which sort of links back to the noise one, we will look at negative pressure buildings, which means basically the noise level or the noise emissions are much lower, but again EA controls emissions. So as we're aware from several of our plants, you know, certain parts of the equipment need an acoustic baffle of some sort that prevent the noise going out. So there's a lot that goes into this, but it will be 24 hours a day, but it won't be 365 because no plant in the UK or in this industry runs 365 days a year.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, Colin. The next question really asks about, it says, what height do you anticipate the stack to be so as not emitting CO2 over Flixborough Village? Now, clearly we're at non-statutory consultation at this particular point, so that hasn't been entirely precisely determined. But Colin, I wonder if that's a question for you, please.
Yeah, I'll try and make it, you could go into a lot of detail on this, but so there's no stack height at the minute. We will always try and work on the distance, the dispersion model, but the point really is no CO2 we hope would be going over Flixborough Village because you're going to trap it. The stack at the minute was likely to be anything about 85 metres, but you know, again, till all of that environmental impact assessment again is completed and the sort of impact on local and distant receptors, the higher the stack, the more distance you have to have you will have an impact. So the higher the stack, the least impact there will be on Flixborough Village is the sort of analysis of that.
Okay, thank you. The next question asks, what about guarantees that odour, vermin, flies and waste will not be a problem encroaching on local villages? From research that I have looked at, this appears to be a major problem. Colin, I'm going to present that to you, if I may, please.
Yeah, quickly again, so covered some of that. So odour, flies, waste, all in negative pressure buildings, sealed. It's not municipal waste, so the risk of flies, because the biogenics has been taken out of it, is significantly reduced. The waste won't just come in open top wagons, as some sites have done, where it's tipped in the open air. It will come in either sealed bales or sealed container units. These will be handled automatically, and any transfer of waste will go through sort of negative pressure conveyors. So we're not expecting to have the same issue. Vermin is always an issue. There's vermin on the site already, and so this is just part of your ongoing control. But with the sealed buildings, you don't have the same problem of an sort of fettered access for vermin. So it's an enclosed space, so it's much more easy to control.
Okay, thank you. The next question really refers to what is around the area when the site was chosen. It says, when you carried out your local research, did you notice that that you plan to build a highly inflammable process near a paint manufacturing plant with stores which were highly inflammable materials? Colin, I'm going to put that to you and in first instance, please.
Yeah, I mean, you have to take account of all local industry, all local developments, current and future. And again, this is all part of the environmental impact assessment, but clearly it's a flammable process, but it's enclosed, you know, because we're removing the heat. We're not expecting the temperature of the gas flue to be above 75 degrees. You know, this isn't your typical plant. So the answer to the questioner's point is yes, we do take that into account. It will be taken into account, and any risk mitigation will have to be put in place.
Apologies, thanks very much. The next question really asks about the appropriateness of building on a site where 28 people died. Colin, Andrew, I wonder if you could comment on that, because it is quite an important thought, isn't it, please?
You want to go first, Andrew?
I'll let you take that one, Colin.
Okay. Yeah, this is weighed heavily on the whole executive team's thinking about the site. We've been considering how we best remember that. You know, the current memorial is sort of away from the site, and we actually hope that this informal consultation would give us the chance to understand how we could be sympathetic to that, and you know, recognize that as an event that it shouldn't be forgotten. So, you know, ultimately the site is functioning now, and we won't actually, you know, on the port site, we're not immediately on that area, but it is an area and it is a sensitivity for us. And I can't give, you know, a more open and honest question, but this has weighed on all of the executives' mind heavily.
Yeah, and obviously not to make light of a very serious disaster, that we would welcome any suggestions from the local public as to how we could, as Colin says, you know, remember those poor individuals that lost their lives.
The other key to this, though, Colin, goes back to the kind of safety points that you've put in before, which is actually making a safety first culture for this project, isn't it? That's absolutely at the root of it.
It is a safety first, and it's rigorous governance on the ongoing safety checks. That is the key. You know, that's what had gone wrong before, and certainly we wouldn't want anything of that nature to go on. And all you can do is put a rigorous check on the safety checks and ensure that maintenance is maintained, you know, at the agreed level. And that's actually one of the first things. We've probably got a maintenance schedule for the thing long before we actually know what the final design will be.
Okay. The same questioner wishes to point out to you that although you all live close to sites within, she lives within half a mile away of that site, of the site that we're proposing. Your proposed plant is in a valley, and we live half a mile at the top of the hill and are therefore directly in line for emittances. I'm going to go really over to Andy Gregory. This will all be covered in the environmental impact assessment, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, part of this process is really to understand, you know, where the receptors are and where the key baseline points need to be for our EIA. So yeah, we'll very much welcome, you know, to talk to this individual to see if we can, you know, it might be that we can use, you know, their experience to help us guide the EIA. So yeah, it will definitely be everything of the landscape, you know, so the views, the potential for noise, all of those topics will be covered by the EIA, and you know, will be considered within that distance.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy. So the penultimate question is, where is all the 650,000 tons of waste coming from? Colin, I know you've put quite a lot of thought into this, so perhaps you could answer that one for us, please.
Yes, I mean, part of our analysis of the site was looking at the availability of waste currently going into landfill and waste currently going for export through the Humber ports. So being specific to the local region, and we're already working with waste tier 1 contracts and waste aggregators, including the North Links Council, as to how we intercept that waste and ensure the local region is zero to landfill. So there is probably in excess of 3 million tonnes of waste currently, even with the other sites that have been proposed or constructed, and you know, so it's all waste that would otherwise be passing through the local area, although I accept not all 650,000 tonnes is produced in North Lincolnshire, but currently finds its way there. So rather than landfill, we're looking to intercept that to go into the energy recovery process.
Okay, the next question says, finally, this proposal should be delayed until these challenging times are over, and then this would allow us to have public meetings. I think you've used this time to bury bad news. The issue here, I think, is that this is a nationally significant infrastructure project, Colin, which is meeting a huge national need, isn't it? So it's delay is not really relevant or appropriate here, is it?
No, we took a long time, as you know, to talk to PINS, to talk to, sorry, the planning inspectorate, to talk to the local council, to talk to the, a lot of the statutory bodies. Formal consultation is continuing to be undertaken, and we've tried to go the extra mile to make sure everybody has the opportunity to discuss. Those that have taken part will know I've spent hours in one-to-one telephone conversations with people that probably wouldn't have come to a public consultation. And certainly we don't believe we're burying bad news at all, and have taken every single question, and all the answers are posted. And from my experience and some of the other teams who've run multiple, I mean, I've had situations where an informal consultation has led to nobody turning up at a public consultation. And so I've been really pleased with the number of people who've participated. They've not all agreed, but we've had really good engagement, and we've had a lot of value from this. So far from, I understand the delay, but actually everybody will have a chance to go back and have their say as part of the formal consultation as well.
And just to add to that, Paul and Colin, the viewers may not know, but we've actually extended the period of the consultation by some 3 weeks, I think longer than it would normally be for this phase, in order to give people every opportunity to make a contribution through one medium or another. So by no means have we tried to, slip it under the carpet. And everybody's entitled to their view. It's, it's our view that it's actually good news for the area, not bad news. But we accept that not everybody will agree with us. But through writing to 2,500 to 3,000 homes in the vicinity, which was agreed to be the scoping area, and by running local ads and trying to do as much as we can to raise the profile of the project, then I don't think we can be accused of trying to slip it under the carpet.
Yeah, I think the other point that I would want to add to that, Andrew, is that this is a non-statutory consultation. Clearly, when the statutory consultation comes in the winter, we're going to take advice and your thoughts from all respondents to this so far about how we can improve the consultation for that. We will take on board for next year for the next set of consultation. Hopefully there will be some light at the end of the tunnel with regards to COVID-19 by then, but it's still very far from clear that is going to be the case.
And just to add, Paul, that this is a voluntary consultation that we didn't have to do, but we've undertook to do.
Yeah, I think that's quite important. This is a voluntary consultation just to introduce the scheme, and I think all of the consultation methods have been really carefully designed to maximise engagement, and like you said, Colin, there's been really good engagement, but the statutory consultation later in this year will be carried out in full accordance with the guidance issued by the government on these sorts of consultations.
Okay, thank you, Kate. The final question is, does the fact that the proposed plant is surrounded by wind turbines have any effect on emissions? I'm going to put that question over to Andy Gregory, please.
That's a really good question. Wind turbines obviously won't affect the internal process. So I guess what the question is getting at is, will it affect air dispersion, as flue gases exit the stack? And I'm afraid I'm going to have to get back to you. I'm tempted to say it's unlikely, but I don't know the answer. There's the potential that wind turbines could cause change, air turbulence that could have an effect. But
and at this point, the truth is that we need to go back and check on that, isn't it? And then we'll post it.
I can talk to our experts and get a more robust answer.
Okay, thank you very much. It's just to say that as I can see no more open questions at the moment, so therefore I would like, on behalf of the project team, to thank everybody who participated on this for your time and attention this afternoon. Of course, this is an open process. If you can think of some more questions or points you would like to raise, then please either send them by email or contact us by phone using the contact details on our website. You have until Tuesday, the end of play, Tuesday, July the 14th to do that, which is not next week, as I think I might have suggested, but the week after that. So please participate in that. We're very interested in having as much response as we can get. And I would like to thank you all and have a good rest of the weekend. Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.